Christine.
Thank you for recognizing. Can you remind us again how the size and shape of the education center and the hotel as two separate entities, and then if you were to merge, are there any thoughts? It might be premature, but just to remind us, what did the hotel kind of look like and the executive center, and then?
Yeah, it doesn't. There's no. I'll go back to the site plan. So there's no look really at all. There's a footprint that we feel confident can support a building that it could take two different forms. It could be an executive education center adjacent to a hotel, or it could be a hotel on top of an executive education center. Those are really the two options. It's about a 25 or maybe 30,000 square foot footprint. What we did do is work out the sight lines so that the residential building and the hotel, to the extent that there's a vertical element to the hotel, there's code issues. They have to be a certain number of feet away, but you also want to preserve views, and you want to make sure that everybody has access to the sort of the terrific views here. So that we've done, but that's really up to the design team that we're working with to try to figure out whether it's really one building or two buildings.
And the hotel was going to be how many stories tall? And so 26 is the residential.
Yeah, residential 26. I don't know if there was a specific number on the hotel. I believe the EIS looked at impacts of a hotel up to about 215 rooms. And that translates into a different number of floors depending on how big the floors are.
Sure.
And how big the rooms are.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because there are a lot of new sort of hotel companies that are looking at different models of not sort of a standard hotel rooms, but more smaller individual rooms and larger public spaces. And there's a lot of interesting stuff happening in the hotel world. Anyone who's been to Long Island City knows that there's sort of an endless variety of new hotels on the market.
Just make sure it's not Trump, okay?
Don't worry, Bloomberg's coming.
Well,
It's not an issue.
One of the things, since we are inundated with hotels on either side of us, wouldn't that also impact, like, there's dozens of nice, beautiful hotels 5 minutes away in Long Island City, and they keep building little ones in Manhattan.
Right.
Isn't this a little, again, how many more hotels can New York's, take?
But it's for your campus, really.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question. There are a lot more permits for hotels in Long Island City than there are hotels in Long Island City. It's a question about how many of them will actually get built, but I think there's a unique opportunity here. Look, I'm a salesman for this project. I think there's a great opportunity on Roosevelt Island itself, but I think there's also an opportunity for the adjacency of the Executive Education Center as an attractor for people and as a way for people to stay on the island and be part of what's happening on the island and on the campus. But the market has not had interest in this the last two times we went out. This time it has, and so I think there's something there. But we'll see. Certainly Cornell is expert in hotels, but not in the economics of hotels in New York City.
I can't afford to stay at the Statler.
I never get a room there. It's always booked by the time
People don't have to tell them what the Statler's about.
What?
Tell the audience what the Statler's about.
Well, Statler is the hotel on Cornell's campus. Cornell is the leading hotel school in the world, and so it's a training school. It's a real hotel, but it utilizes students, undergraduates, graduate students, and so everyone in the lobby has a button on that says what class they're in and what they're studying. And it's really quite wonderful.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It's a beautiful hotel.
It is. It is.
And way back when we talked about residential, Roosevelt Island residents maybe having some kind of deal with cut rate or a smaller, reduced rate or something when a hotel came to be.
Yep.
And now we're getting closer, right?
Yeah, so that's in the mix. Yeah, in fact, we were just looking at that today. That's right.
Okay.
So I think that's it in terms of where we are on the site. The only other thing I wanted to say, unless there are other questions about the site, is, and Jane, I don't know if you talked about this, but as we get closer to opening the campus, and we start thinking seriously about how we staff the campus and how we operate the campus, Cornell is currently advertising for a director of operations. And so it's a very high-level job. We're looking for someone with broad experience in operating major facilities, could be educational facilities, it could be other kinds of public facilities, cultural facilities, not-for-profit facilities. And so that listing, it's on, it's posted, I don't know exactly where it's posted.
I posted it today.
What's that?
I posted it
Oh,
today.
okay, good, good.
Did you?
Okay,
Okay, great.
But the reason I think it's of interest to this group is that, as we've said that we should probably have someone aboard, at least a year before we open. And I know that there were questions and issues and concerns that were raised early on in the process about things like security and operations planning and emergency planning, and so all of those areas would be under the director of operations. So I would think over time, when that person comes on, they would be, as we transition from a construction project to a sort of an ongoing project, that's an operations project, that person would be someone who would be very much involved with this group. So stay tuned. We just started this process.
Thank you for bringing that up, yes.
But I think, again, it's funny you said it just before that June we want to start thinking about. We're really thinking about occupying this campus and what that means in terms of the transition from, as I said, from a development project to a sort of an ongoing operations thing.
I just have one quick question, because as you're completing the roads and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of the cherry tree champion.
Yes.
So I just wondered if, while you're completing it and reseeding the road and stuff like that, will you be putting cherry trees in along that clean space side?
next
So
list.
that's a good
Yeah.
question. The answer at the moment is no. I would like to put trees in on that side, just so that we don't have any approval or permission to do that. It's not our property. What we've seen is that trees don't really thrive on that side of the river, but I don't know whether that's because people haven't taken care of them or because it's just a different environment over there. So without committing to anything, we are going to rebuild the eastern esplanade and replace it to where it was. The problem is where it wasn't great. And so I would love for this project to be able to plant with this. We certainly have the ability to plant trees on that side of the esplanade. We're happy to talk to you or to, I know, Dr. Schwari or others who have strong opinions about that. I don't know if cherry trees are in our budget, but we can certainly talk about that. But I am interested actually in this question of what trees thrive and survive over there and which ones don't. But I think we can do that.
Yeah, that's great. Yes.
As these, your position you spoke of is a very high-powered one, but as these openings occur in Cornell, it's vaguely worded in the contract, but there is verbiage about, yes, offering opportunities to residents when appropriate.
Yep.
So are you going to advertise in the wire or something like that? We make public some of these positions?
Yeah, and that's.
We do. We send the,
Job boards.
we do
Yeah.
send the job board to the publications on the island.
Well, you don't advertise it.
Pardon me?
You don't advertise it. It's
But,
never
I mean,
mind.
I think you get an email from Julie DeLay, I think. I'm just putting that out there, that I think that our Director of Human Resources does send
Right.
to the island publication.
Yeah, sorry, as a general policy, we don't pay to advertise jobs at Cornell broadly. We try not to do that because we're a big organization that hires a lot of people. But I actually, long-term, that's a good point, and that's something that the Director of Operations will be overseeing, is the hiring of staff for the campus. Everything from, as I said, security to landscape to building maintenance and operations. That's within the purview of that job to make decisions about how that all gets staffed. And we have made commitments about
Including how
certain
the
kinds
news
of
gets
hiring.
out to the residents of the island.
Correct, the whole thing, that's
I
right.
remember we had the job board, the
We have-
sharing, we had
we
ideas
have-
about how
that's
to
right.
get it out.
That's right, we have commitments to
Sorry, talking to
advertising, but also to
Right,
local
that's right,
hiring
that's
and
right.
to opportunity.
Will.
Yeah,
Yes, and there haven't been very many, opportunities,
yeah.
but there will. So,
And thanks for taking care of the trees with the cement barriers.
Yeah, we apologize
Cherry
about that. I know
trees.
Steve found it and we moved them quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And congratulations, I know this is a peak period.
It's
and
amazing.
I have heard no bad things about trucks.
That's great.
I actually wants to make a comment, if.
Yeah.
Now because of the gas lines, there's so much going on in Main Street, but my only comment is, they're really big yellow cement trucks, they speed like crazy down Main Street, and I just wanted to mention, you should be aware of that.
But we also were saying that specifically, you could time, plate, and which truck Because what we did is we've seen that and given it to Jane,
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah.
she's given it to Andrew, and his
Sure.
team has like dealt with it, so.
That's right.
Specifics, time,
Yeah.
date,
Yeah.
truck,
And
and.
even I know,
recipe.
like, if there's a car right in front of them and if
Right.
they stop too long at a stop sign, they'll honk, you know,
We-
they,
we
they
know-
want, and I understand they wanna move as quickly as
Right.
possible. I
Get
No,
the-
we
get
know-
the information.
We know some of them are aggressive, and we do everything we can. I think many of them are well behaved. There are always some that are not, and we do,
Yeah.
to the extent that we can specifically pinpoint them, we're very happy we've banned certain drivers, from the island, and so the more information we can have when you see that, the better.
Why are we always bringing dirt onto the island? There are dump trucks 7 days a week with dirt. Where is this dirt going?
It's a great question. It's a fair
Close to
question.
Newcastle.
Isn't it great?
I know. So what it is it's fill that we can't use fill from the site. It's for the roadways. It's to fill these sorts of things, and DEP and DOT and others have certain requirements for that fill, so we have to bring that onto site. I will tell you that we anticipated on the site itself, if you've walked around the site, you know there are big piles of junk there. We anticipated that we would have about an equal amount of material we anticipated we'd have no material that we needed to remove in order to achieve the site plan that we wanted. Turns out we have probably about 30,000 cubic yards of extra material on the site. We're still not sure where it came from. But we are working now with our environmental consulting firm to characterize that soil in such a way that we can keep it on site and use it for a clean fill cap, except for the horticultural soil at the top, which we have to bring in. But we tried to use that for this fill, and it doesn't.
Well, we would
So that's
love
the
it
answer.
on a sledding hill.
You may you may very well get one.
Our kids are really worried.
Right. Okay, I guess, Rick, that's right, you
When,
have.
On air quality, has there
Yes.
been any progress on, I know there was a meeting, wasn't there a meeting
There
with?
was, yes, there was a meeting with Rue. They had asked, Frank was there and Ellen was there. There were a few technical issues that Frank had asked our Rue team to resolve, to look at, having to do with the equipment and the metering and the zeroing of the equipment, which was a very technical issue. I know they've looked into it. I can't answer that question, but I'll get the answer for you to that question. But my sense is that, there's a general sense that what was being done was generally considered decent. I mean, I should let you speak. You were at the meeting.
Yeah, we had asked Cornell to look at the air quality of the trucks that were coming in. And what Dr. Eisel told us was that you couldn't really distinguish between the air quality coming off the bridge. The fumes coming off the bridge and the particulate matter coming from the bridge, and the particulate matter that might be coming from the diesel trucks. So you couldn't pin anything specific on those trucks. The air quality in our neighborhood is just pretty bad anyway, because we have the bridge overhead. And any kind of additional testing that Cornell would do wouldn't really give us enough information, so we're giving you a pass on it. We're not expecting any more air quality monitoring. It's just, we've got bad enough air quality, and it's being looked at by the city as a whole in snapshots throughout the year, and they can pretty much pinpoint where in the city the bad parts are and take action as a city to mitigate it. But any attempt to really pinpoint specifics is pretty hard to do at this point, because we live in a soupy mess of pollution.
But there are ongoing measurements.
But there are ongoing measurements in the city that can, that will give us good information as a whole in the city.
Yeah,
about what's going on.
I think broadly that's right, that you can't pinpoint the sources, but I thought the presentation was actually pretty optimistic. And I actually think that if there are people on the island, you know, who are interested in having a presentation from him, I thought it was quite fascinating because he's got this incredibly detailed, data-driven testing grid throughout the entire city. And in fact, we thought one of the things we talked about is, well, why isn't there a grid point on Roosevelt Island, which was left out of the city's air quality monitoring program in 2010 and onward. And his perspective on it was that there's enough testing in all these other places that he can determine. But the level of air quality in the city broadly has gotten tremendously better over the last number of years. It's really astonishing
In
to
2009,
see.
the 13.
Yeah, with taking out of the number 6 fuel. Anyway, it's a long story, but I think the big picture is that this, if to the extent that people are interested in air quality across the city, it is sort of a regional issue, and you know these guys are the experts on it. I thought it was a pretty compelling presentation.
Yes, it has gotten better because we're making an attempt to reduce the heating fuel, change the heating fuel that the buildings are using, but we still live underneath the bridge, and the bridge is a major source of ongoing pollution for the island. So that's, you know, so if we have, so we're not any worse off than the rest of the city, but we do have a bad area, you know, to have to work. You know, our concern is founded that there is a bridge overhead and we do have pollution from the bridge, but there's nothing we can do about it. So, and any additional pollution from the trucks coming in, we couldn't pinpoint or identify. So, but yes,
Was
but
anything said-
maybe Dr. Reichel would be willing to come and give maybe if you invite him. he
We're
would
happy
be
to.
willing to
I think it's a great
come
story,
to
and
the
I think
town hall
long
meeting.
term it's clearly a public health issue, which is something
That would
Cornell is very
actually-
interested in, and it's a data issue, which is something we're interested in.
Yeah.
I thought it was very hopeful. I have to say, I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I mean, obviously there's more to do, but I thought that the public policy choices that the government has made over the last number of years has really had a fairly dramatic impact.
Ellen, was anything said about the impact of the Trans-Canada Power Plant as a component of our air quality? I mean, it's right across the river from us, and they have big
which one?
smokestacks.
The electric plant.
Not in the specific. Again, his, you know what, why don't you hold that question? And when we ask Dr. Eisel to come and talk to the community,
I mean,
you can ask that
they've
question.
changed what they burn, which has made a significant difference, but quantitatively, what is that difference?
Yeah, you know, it was quite interesting in that he has some sort of a scientific, way of taking a snapshot at various points in the city and using an algorithm to determine where the pollution levels are higher or lower around the city. So, I don't recall that we fared any worse in lots of other places.
Is there a nice clean spot he identified? We could all go and breathe and then come back.
And is it anywhere near West?
And Kelly, you had a question about.
Do you know whether you discussed anything about the John?
The
On the
MTS,
Upper East-
on the Upper East Side, and he did say.
The Marine Transfer
The Marine
Station.
Transfer Station.
Yeah, well, yeah, that
Property.
question again, that's the same issue, that you can't really pinpoint the dump as being at fault for a spike in pollution.
There should be a before and after though, because they'll have the baseline
Yeah.
based on all the other.
Yes, I think he was saying that there was not a problem with the Roosevelt Island and the Upper East Side of 92nd, where the Marine Transfer Station is, that they did not impact.
What he did say, he did recommend though, that the community hire an expert, but this is not a discussion for here, this is not a discussion for our meeting, but just in a nutshell, that the community hire an expert, not him, because he had, you know, he's part of the city. You know, he has a contract with the city to do this, it's air quality monitoring, but a different expert to review all the stats of the marine transfer station and use that as a negotiating factor for limiting, you know, the pollution outputs of the trucks and perhaps in the barges, et cetera. You know, negotiating what kind of fuel the barges might use. You know, giving suggestions on what might mitigate the impact of the marine transfer station, rather than trying to stop it, mitigate the impact of it.
Okay, anything else?
Yes.
Since there are Roosevelt Islanders here, and Roosevelt Island media and other guests, I wanted to remind everyone that the 29th is the deadline to apply to your local community board. The Borough President's Office is always looking for people to step up and serve their communities, represent their communities, be the voice of their communities, particularly Roosevelt Islanders. Community Board 8 could really use some more Roosevelt Islanders representing the island on the board. Those of you who come from other parts of the borough, we're always looking for new people, tradeswomen and other people who are not necessarily your usual suspects that would be involved in things like this to join and add new voices to the community board. The community board is open to anyone 16 years and older. And there's an application online on the Borough President's website, and I also have paper copies. So please spread the words. I can give you some applications here. If you know any promising young people who might be very keen to serve their communities, please spread the word. And on the 31st, the Borough President is having her State of the Borough, which will be a very, very well attended affair. It's at the new school at 2 p.m. We hope you'll come, and it will also be broadcast live on MNN, Time Warner Cable, RCN, and Fios.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you. And just a short community update. The thing that I wanted to